A battle is brewing at Red Bull's garages, and things are going to get really intense after the summer break. Since Daniel Ricciardo was meant to replace Nyck de Vries of Red Bull's sister team, AlphaTauri, Sergio Perez and Yuki Tsunoda have been under pressure, since everyone knows a Red Bull seat is the Aussie's real goal. Although Perez is afraid to end up like de Vries, kicked out before his contract ends, the person who is in actual battle with the Formula McLaren driver is Yuki Tsunoda. The two drivers are currently going head to head on who will be promoted to Red Bull when the time arises. So what do we know about the battle, and who's currently leading? You have to stick around to find out. When Helmut Marko announced that Nyck de Vries will be joining the AlphaTauri team for the 2023 season, most people said it was a bad choice, and they were right. It took only a few races for Red Bull's chief advisor to decide that there was no reason for de Vries to remain on the team if he couldn't deliver. The roomy driver had been given till August to improve his performance, but what sped up the kicking out process was the fact that they had an ace up their sleeves, Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo would join the Red Bull team as a third driver, despite the initial speculation that he was joining the team to replace Perez. Knowing that his reputation had been damaged due to his 2-year stint with McLaren, he worked really hard to redeem himself in front of his employers, and it worked. The highlight of his performance was during Pirelli's test drive at Silverstone. According to reports, the former McLaren driver had shown an impressive pace during the race. It was so good that he would have been one of the forerunners if he had actually participated in the British Grand Prix. Red Bull's team principal Christian Horner had been so impressed, he immediately reached out to Marko to tell him how outstanding Ricciardo's pace was. In a funny twist of events, Marko called Horner a few hours later to inform him that he had decided to let de Vries go with immediate effect. Before they could conclude on the technicalities of the dismissal, journalists got wind of the news and everyone knew what was going on. So Ricciardo's incredible performance earned him a spot on the AlphaTauri team. But you might recollect that after his contract with McLaren abruptly ended, he announced that he'd like to take at least a year's break from the grid, and that was why he accepted the third driver role with good fate. So why did he agree to join AlphaTauri in the middle of the season? You know the answer: Red Bull. The Aussie driver constantly talked about how much he wanted to return to Red Bull. Knowing that there was no way he could get back into a Red Bull seat without being tested, he agreed to the AlphaTauri role, and he blew everyone away with his first race at the Hungarian Grand Prix. The Aussie driver went as far as Q2 during qualifying with his 80.04, which is considered to be one of the slowest on the grid. Although he ended up finishing in 13th place during the actual race, it was still a very impressive performance. Unlike his teammate Yuki, who got eliminated in Q1, Ricciardo's performance at the Hungarian Grand Prix might have been even better if the race had not got off to a dramatic start. Zhou Guanyu of Alfa Romeo had hit his vehicle at the first corner, which led to further contact with Alpine's Esteban Ocon, but lucky enough, Ricciardo came out of it all unscathed. However, he found himself at the back of the grid. Soon enough, an opportunity to get ahead of his rivals emerged when he took an early second stop, and with that, he was able to finish in 13th place. To many, a 13th position is not all that, but considering the fact that he was driving a snail and was barely familiar with how the car worked, his performance was impressive. It was reported that the Aussie driver had just one simulator session to introduce himself to the car before the race. The Aussie performance was a threat to Yuki Tsunoda, because it's common knowledge that whoever performs better stands a chance of being promoted to Red Bull. Tsunoda himself said before the Hungarian GP that whoever did better could get a seat at Red Bull. It will be clear soon, but either driver will be slower and the slower guy won't make it to Red Bull. That's easy. The faster guy has more chances to go to Red Bull. It's how it works in Formula 1. That's it. Yuki definitely knew that he had to put in more effort now that his teammate was more competitive, but the Japanese driver has made it known that he is up for the challenge. It's a challenge always in the end. It doesn't make much difference. Daniel or Nyck, whatever. Anyway, I have to do the same thing I was doing to Nyck. You need to beat your teammates. That's the most important thing. Daniel is not an easy driver to defeat, but at the same time, I'll do what I did in the last couple of races, and it's clear the faster guy goes up. That's it. True to his words, he performed incredibly well at the Belgian Grand Prix. It's no news that AlphaTauri was one of the backbenchers of Formula 1, despite being a sister team to Red Bull, and it took extra work for the drivers to earn points on the grid. Tsunoda did that extra work. After Ricciardo did what he did at the Hungarian Grand Prix, Tsunoda needed a really big win to put him ahead of the Aussie driver and reclaim his position as the star driver of the team. Lucky for him, Ricciardo was unable to put up a good fight. During qualifying, Ricciardo was set to go to Q2, but a small error on his last run in the first session at Radion got him penalised for a track limits violation, and this resulted in his time being wiped from the board. However, things went very well for his teammate Tsunoda. The Japanese driver excelled in the fastest one-lap session and missed the final qualifying by a little over 0.3 seconds behind Verstappen, which was really good. So good, it was enough to start the Grand Prix in 11th position. During the race, the AlphaTauri driver was in 6th place, but issues with tyre strategies resulted in him crossing the checkered flag in 10th place, earning him his 3rd point for the season, while the great Ricciardo finished at P16, only 2 places away from last place. What makes it worse for the driver is that it will take 4 weeks for him to get a chance to redeem himself. When Ricciardo performed really well in Hungary, everyone thought there was no way Tsunoda would get a seat in Red Bull. The Formula 1 reporter, Ted Kravitz, had even called Ricciardo team leader, emphasizing the point that Ricciardo was the faster of the two. Poor Yuki. He's battled gamely with his car all year, and now is being shown which way to go by Daniel Ricciardo, 17 seconds behind Daniel Ricciardo. I know he didn't get the rub of the green with the first stop, but that is a bit ouchy for poor Yuki. So Ricciardo is clearly the team leader. I'm sorry Yuki, but he is. You can understand that. He's a 7 or 8-time Grand Prix winner. But Yuki had gone to Spa, Belgium, to show them all that being a Grand Prix champion didn't mean Ricciardo was the better driver. For Ricciardo, his performance at Spa was a reality check, and it dawned on him that the AlphaTauri car was a complete disaster. However, he mentioned that he spent the summer break in the gym so as to get back in proper racing shape. And as for the car, Ricciardo revealed how hard it was for him to handle the car. He complained about the tyres, complained about the weather. He was overall not pleased with how it all went down. Honestly, it was tough in traffic. Maybe a race with more clear air could have been better, but in general, I'm not convinced we had a great pace today. It felt like we never got the peak out of the tyres. We couldn't generate enough grip in the second sector. The Aussie driver continued describing his woes. When we were in clear air later in the race, I felt we were more competitive, but in traffic, it was definitely hard. The reality is, these were my first dry laps in this car on this track. I don't know this car that well yet, so I still feel there was a little missing, but we'll figure it out. As for Tsunoda, he said his car was flying, so could it be true that Ricciardo's below par performance was due to his lack of familiarity with the car? Whatever the case may be, the Honey Badger has a lot ahead of him if he truly wants a spot on Red Bull, and it won't be easy, because Tsunoda is ready to put in his best to ensure he is the faster driver. The summer break is almost over, and we definitely can't wait to see how it all plays out. So, who do you think would come out victorious? Ricciardo or Tsunoda? Kindly let us know in the comment section, and we'll see you in the next video.